The phone simply would not stop vibrating. 47 missed calls on Monday, 63 by Wednesday. By Friday morning, the number hit exactly 103. Every single buzz sent a small, undeniable wave of satisfaction through my chest as I sat in the quiet comfort of my new apartment, a steaming mug of dark roast coffee in my hand, watching my old company's infrastructure crumble from the outside. 5 days earlier, I had walked out of Vertex Solutions with nothing but a small cardboard box of personal belongings and a serene smile that utterly confused everyone who saw it. My manager, Martin Vance, had just announced that the Director of Infrastructure, promotion, the exact role I had been working toward for 3 grueling years, was going to someone else. Not just anyone, mind you, but Julian Brooks. Julian was the undisputed office favorite who could not debug his way out of a wet paper bag, but who could effortlessly charm his way into any executive boardroom. I had congratulated Julian with genuine warmth in my voice, shook his hand firmly, and smiled brightly at Martin. Then I had walked calmly back to my desk, quietly disabled the complex automated scripts I had written that kept our fragile servers running smoothly, documented absolutely nothing in my final reports, and tendered my resignation effective immediately. Nobody saw it coming. Nobody truly understood what they had just lost. Before the full story unfolds, there is something worth mentioning. This channel is on a journey to reach 5,000 subscribers, people who appreciate stories about standing up for your worth without burning bridges or losing your integrity. If that resonates with you, the subscribe button is right there. No pressure. Just an invitation to be part of a community that values self-respect as much as success. My name is Richard Caldwell. At 48 years old, I had spent the last 6 years at Vertex Solutions, climbing steadily from a senior systems administrator to the lead infrastructure architect who basically held the entire back end, together with custom code, duct tape, and a whole lot of midnight oil. My parents ran a small hardware store in rural Ohio. It was the kind of community staple where they knew every single customer by their first name and willingly extended credit to families who were going through hard times. I grew up watching my father repair a neighbor's broken lawnmower for free because her husband had just passed away, and my mother slip extra batteries and flashlights into bags for families who could not quite afford them. They never made much money, but they made a profound difference in people's lives. That upbringing gave me something most people in the tech industry seem to lack: the ability to see people as human beings first and human resources second. I understood struggle. I understood what it meant to work twice as hard for half the recognition, and I understood exactly when someone was taking advantage of my good nature. Martin Vance was taking advantage, and he had finally pushed me far past my breaking point. The morning Martin announced Julian, promotion started like any other Tuesday. I arrived at the office at 7:30 in the morning, a full hour before most of the team, to meticulously check on the server loads and make sure the overnight batch processes had completed successfully. They had, of course. They always did when I was watching over them. Vertex Solutions was a mid-sized software company that provided customer relationship management solutions to about 800 enterprise clients. Our platform was not flashy, but it was incredibly reliable. Hospitals used it. Regional banks used it. City governments used it for public services. Downtime was not just a minor inconvenience. It could mean real, tangible consequences for real people. That steadfast reliability was largely my doing, though you would never know it from looking at the organizational chart or reading the company newsletters. I had designed the current architecture 3 years ago when the old legacy system started buckling under increased load. I had personally written the monitoring tools that caught minor problems before they snowballed into catastrophic disasters. I had created the automated recovery scripts that could bring services back online in minutes instead of hours. I patiently trained every new developer who joined the team on best practices and rigorous code review standards. My annual performance reviews were always exceptional. Martin told me repeatedly that I was invaluable and the absolute backbone of the technical team, but when promotion time came around, there was always a convenient excuse to wait. Next quarter, next fiscal year, when the big migration project wrapped up, when the departmental budget was clearer, 3 years of being told next time. Then Julian Brooks joined the company 18 months ago. Julian was, objectively speaking, a decent mid-level developer. He could write functional code. He understood the basic fundamentals of our technology stack. He did not create immediate disasters, but he was far from exceptional. He was not someone who saw 3 steps ahead or who could diagnose a production issue by pure instinct. What Julian excelled at was visibility. He enthusiastically volunteered for every single committee. He spoke up in every meeting, even when he did not have much of substance to say. He played golf with Martin on Saturdays. He remembered everyone's birthdays and organized the office parties. He brought gourmet donuts on Fridays. I did not resent him for that. Office politics was a distinct skill like any other, and Julian had mastered it completely. What I fiercely resented was the underlying assumption that visibility equaled technical competence and that superficial charm equaled leadership capability. 6 months ago, Martin created the Director of Infrastructure position. He pulled me aside after the announcement and told me that this role had my name written all over it. He asked me to prepare a comprehensive roadmap for the third-quarter infrastructure upgrade so we could make the promotion official. I spent the next 4 months designing a complete overhaul of our deployment pipeline. I prototyped the entire system on my own time, documented every architectural decision, created extensive training materials for the junior team members, and presented an implementation plan that would save the company roughly $300,000 annually in operational costs. Martin loved it. The executive board loved it. This is exactly the kind of strategic thinking we need in a director, Martin had said afterward, vigorously shaking my hand. He promised to formalize everything with human resources and have the announcement ready by the end of the month. That was 6 weeks ago. Now, sitting in the large conference room with 23 other engineers, I was about to find out exactly how much my hard work actually meant to them. Martin stood at the front of the room, practically vibrating with unearned enthusiasm. He cleared his throat and looked around at the assembled team. "I have some extremely exciting news to share with everyone," he began, a wide grin plastered across his face. "As you all know, we recently created the Director of Infrastructure position to help lead our technical strategy into the future. After very careful consideration and many discussions, I am absolutely thrilled to announce that Julian Brooks will be stepping into that role effective immediately." The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. I looked over at Julian, who appeared genuinely surprised. Either he was an incredibly gifted actor, or he truly had not known this was coming. He stood up to polite, scattered applause, enthusiastically shook Martin's hand, and delivered a short, polished speech about how deeply honored he was and how much he looked forward to collaborating with every single one of us. I clapped along with everyone else. I kept my expression perfectly pleasant and highly interested. Deep inside my mind, however, something fundamental shifted and crystallized into absolute clarity. I was done. After the meeting dispersed, Martin caught my elbow in the hallway. "Richard, do you have a minute?" We stepped into his corner office. He closed the heavy glass door and gestured for me to sit down. "I know you were really hoping for that position," he said, conspicuously avoiding eye contact. "And I want you to know that this decision does not reflect negatively on your technical abilities in any way at all. You are phenomenal at what you do." "Thank you," I said, keeping my voice perfectly even and entirely devoid of emotion. "The thing is," Martin continued, nervously shifting in his expensive leather chair, "the director role requires someone who can seamlessly interface with external stakeholders, manage up to the executive leadership team, and represent our department in high-level strategic planning sessions. Julian has really shown incredible strength in that specific area. He has the essential soft skills that our enterprise clients value." Soft skills. That was the trivial skill that ultimately defeated my 3 years of unpaid overtime, my comprehensive system documentation, my endless mentoring of junior developers, and my complete infrastructure redesign. Soft skills. "I completely understand," I said, and I truly meant it. I understood the situation perfectly. "I am so glad you are being so professional about this," Martin continued, a visible wave of relief washing over his face. "The honest truth is, we desperately need you right exactly where you are. You are so good at the nuts and bolts, at keeping everything running smoothly behind the scenes. Julian will handle the overarching strategic vision, but we absolutely need your flawless execution expertise. Translation: Julian would gladly take credit for all the high-level ideas and strategic wins, while I did all the actual grueling work. All of this would happen at my current salary, in my current title, with absolutely no realistic advancement in sight. That makes total sense, I said with a practiced nod. Martin beamed at me. I knew you would get it. You are the ultimate team player, Richard. That is exactly why everyone loves working with you. I stood up, shook his hand one more time, and walked back to my desk. For about 20 solid minutes, I sat at my workstation and stared blankly at my dual monitors without really seeing them. My mind was extraordinarily calm. There was no fiery anger, no overwhelming sadness, no dramatic sense of betrayal. There was only cold, hard calculation. I pulled up my personal bank account portal. I had been saving aggressively for years, living well below my means in a modest apartment. Between my liquid savings and diversified investments, I had roughly 14 months of living expenses completely covered. Even more if I decided to be exceptionally frugal. I checked my personal email. 3 different technical recruiters had contacted me in the past month alone. My professional networking profile, which I barely maintained, still garnered regular interest from top-tier companies. The open market for an infrastructure architect with my specific skill set was exceptionally strong. I opened a blank text file and began to methodically catalog exactly what I did at Vertex Solutions that nobody else knew how to do. The list grew astonishingly quickly. The monitoring scripts that caught database deadlocks before they cascaded into full platform outages. The complex load balancing algorithms that distributed heavy traffic during our peak afternoon hours. The automated failover systems that seamlessly switched to backup databases whenever the primary ones hiccuped. The sophisticated caching layer that kept client response times under 200 milliseconds. The data reconciliation jobs that ran silently every night to catch synchronization errors. None of this critical infrastructure was in my official job description. I had built all of it completely on my own initiative simply because I saw systemic problems and decided to fix them. Most of it was not even formally documented beyond my personal, encrypted notes. The code itself was well commented, sure, but understanding why I had made specific architectural decisions required historical context that existed primarily inside my head. Julian did not even know half of these systems existed. Martin vaguely knew I had automated some routine tasks, but he had absolutely no idea of the sheer scope. The rest of the engineering team blindly benefited from the platform's stability without ever questioning what created it. If I left today, how long would it take for everything to completely fall apart? I pulled up our historical incident report logs. Before I had implemented my various automated systems, we averaged about 4 major platform outages every single month, each lasting between 2 and 6 agonizing hours. Client complaints had been a constant, deafening roar. The previous lead architect had quit in utter frustration. In the 3 years since I had taken over the infrastructure, we had experienced exactly 2 outages, both directly related to third-party service failures, completely outside of our control, and both were fully resolved within 40 minutes. Nobody noticed when things worked perfectly. That was the tragic curse of good infrastructure engineering. I made my final decision. Opening a fresh document, I wrote a simple, concise resignation letter. It was highly professional, exceptionally courteous, and effective immediately. I voluntarily forfeited 2 weeks of salary to legally accommodate the lack of standard notice. I cited pursuing other external opportunities and thanked the executive team for the experience. Then I systematically began to undo my safety nets. The monitoring scripts were the first things to go. I did not delete them. That would be malicious sabotage and potentially illegal. I simply disabled them. I changed the execution schedules so they would no longer run. The code remained intact in the company repository, but it would no longer actively protect the servers. Anyone bothering to look at the server logs would see that the scheduled tasks had simply been stopped. The automated recovery scripts got the exact same treatment, disabled, not deleted. The load balancing tweaks I had engineered were coded directly into configuration files. I reverted those specific files to their default settings. Again, nothing was deleted. Everything was just returned to how it had been when I first arrived at the company. The brilliant infrastructure redesign documentation, the exact project that Martin had praised so highly, had been written entirely on my personal laptop, strictly on my own time. It had never been officially submitted to the company's internal repository. I moved it to a deeply encrypted archive folder and scrubbed it from my synchronized cloud drives. I went through every major system I had quietly improved and meticulously removed my digital fingerprints. It took about 3 hours in total. Nobody interrupted me once. Everyone naturally assumed I was just doing my usual invisible work. By 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the entire Vertex Solutions infrastructure was reverted back to the exact state it had been in 3 years ago. It was functional, but incredibly fragile. It was capable, but entirely without any safety margins. It would work fine under perfectly normal conditions, but the very moment anything unusual happened, a sudden traffic spike, a database hiccup, a minor network glitch, there would be zero automated systems to catch it. They would have to fix the massive problems manually, assuming they could even figure out what the problems were in the first place. I printed my formal resignation letter, signed it with a heavy blue pen, and walked straight to Martin's office. He was on a conference call but waved me in impatiently. I waited silently until he finally hung up the phone. "What is up, Richard?" he asked breezily. I handed him the printed letter. His eyes scanned the crisp text quickly, and his relaxed expression rapidly morphed from mild confusion to deep concern, and then to something approaching outright panic. "Effective immediately? Richard, what exactly is going on here? Is this about the promotion this morning? Because we can definitely talk about a substantial raise, a new title bump, maybe even a lead architect position for you. I deeply appreciate that generous offer," I said calmly, "but I have already made my final decision. I will pack up my desk and be out of the building within the hour." "You cannot just leave with absolutely zero notice," Martin stammered, his voice rising in pitch. "What about the core infrastructure? What about the massive third-quarter deployment project?" "The infrastructure is fully documented in the company repositories," I replied smoothly. "Any competent engineer can easily maintain it. As for the upcoming deployment project, I am absolutely certain that Julian will have excellent strategic ideas for moving forward. That is precisely why you promoted him, is it not? His overarching strategic vision." Martin's face flushed a deep, angry red. "Richard, you need to be reasonable here. We desperately need transition time. At the very least, you must give us the standard 2 weeks of notice. I am voluntarily forfeiting my salary." "For those 2 weeks," I reminded him. "According to my signed employment contract, that is a perfectly acceptable alternative for immediate resignation. I spoke with Human Resources this morning, and Sarah Miller personally confirmed it. I had indeed called HR before disabling a single script, just to make absolutely sure I was legally covered." "This is incredibly unprofessional," Martin hissed, his voice hardening into a scowl, "especially after everything this company has done to support you." That statement almost made me laugh out loud. Almost. "I have given this company 6 solid years of exceptional, unrewarded work," I countered firmly. "I am leaving professionally and legally. My resignation is officially effective as of right now." I turned on my heel and walked out before he could formulate a response. Packing my desk took exactly 30 minutes. I did not have much to take a few framed photos, some personal reference books on advanced programming, a heavy ceramic coffee mug my parents had given me, and a small, resilient succulent plant that had somehow survived on my desk for 4 years. A few coworkers stopped by my cubicle, genuinely surprised by the sudden departure. I told everyone the exact same rehearsed story. I had been presented with an amazing external opportunity I simply could not pass up, and I wished them all the absolute best. Julian approached my desk just as I was sealing my cardboard box with packing tape. "Hey, Richard, I just heard the crazy news. I really want you to know I did not ask for the promotion. I had no idea you were even up for it. I actually believed him." Julian was not maliciously calculating. He was just profoundly oblivious to his own unearned privilege. "Congratulations on the new role, Julian," I said with genuine politeness. "I truly hope it goes well for you. Is there any possible way I could convince you to stay, or at least to grab coffee sometime in the next couple of weeks? Julian pleaded, looking slightly desperate. I would love to pick your brain about the infrastructure setup. Martin mentioned you had done a lot of custom work back there. I am sure you will figure it all out, I said smoothly. All the core code is in the repository. Good luck, Julian. I walked out of the glass double doors at 2:15 on Tuesday afternoon. Several people looked highly confused. A few looked deeply concerned. Martin watched me from his corner office window, his cell phone already pressed tightly to his ear, probably frantically calling human resources or his own executive manager. The afternoon sun was exceptionally bright outside. The expansive parking lot was half empty, as it always was in the middle of a regular workday. I loaded my small box into the trunk of my car, sat in the driver's seat, and took a long, deep breath of freedom. Then I turned the ignition key and drove away without looking in the rearview mirror. The first frantic call came early Wednesday morning. It was Martin. I let it go straight to voicemail. Richard, it is Martin. Look, I really think we got off on the wrong foot yesterday afternoon. Can we please talk? Call me back immediately. I calmly deleted the message. 3 more desperate calls from Martin came throughout Wednesday. 2 calls came from the Human Resources Director, Sarah Miller. 1 call came directly from the Chief Technology Officer, Harold Jenkins, which was highly unusual. Harold barely even knew who I was, despite the undeniable fact that I had kept his entire technical operation running flawlessly for years. I did not return a single one of their calls. Wednesday evening, I treated myself to a luxurious dinner at an upscale Italian restaurant I had always wanted to try, but never had the free time to visit. I ordered an expensive bottle of wine. I savored every single bite of my meal. I went back to my apartment and slept for 9 hours straight, the absolute best sleep I had experienced in months. By Thursday morning, the volume of incoming calls drastically increased. Martin called 6 times. Sarah called 4 times. Harold called twice. Then a random number I did not recognize popped up on my screen, probably someone else from the engineering team calling from a personal cell phone. I blocked absolutely nothing. I just sat back and simply did not answer. Thursday afternoon, I went to a quiet local coffee shop and carefully updated my professional resume. I immediately sent it to the 3 technical recruiters who had contacted me most recently, along with a brief note stating that I was immediately available for new roles. All 3 recruiters responded enthusiastically within 2 hours. One of them already had 2 different enterprise companies begging to interview me. Thursday evening, Julian texted me directly. We had never texted before, but I had given him my personal number once for an emergency on-call rotation. Hey Richard, really hope you are doing okay. Would love to buy you a coffee and chat about the back-end systems when you have some free time. Absolutely no pressure. I read the text, smiled, and did not respond. Saturday afternoon, Vertex got desperate and extremely nasty. A courier delivered a certified legal letter directly to my apartment from Vertex Solutions, corporate counsel. The aggressive letter formally threatened me with a devastating civil lawsuit under the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, falsely claiming I had maliciously sabotaged their proprietary corporate network. They demanded I immediately surrender the automation scripts or face total financial ruin. I read the threatening letter, laughed out loud in my empty kitchen, and immediately drafted my response. I did not need an expensive lawyer to handle this intimidation tactic. I clearly cited the copyright infringement statutes under Title 17 of the United States Code, Section 501. I calmly pointed out that I had painstakingly written those specific automation scripts entirely on my personal laptop, strictly on my own unpaid time, and completely outside the rigid boundaries of my job description. The scripts were my absolute personal intellectual property. By aggressively demanding the code, Vertex was effectively demanding the unauthorized use of my personal IP without negotiating a proper software license. I also sternly reminded them that I had not deleted a single line of company code. I had merely turned off my own personal property. ID Harold Jenkins and Martin Vance on the email response. Within 2 hours, Harold called me directly, profusely apologizing and completely retracting the legal threat, blaming an overzealous corporate lawyer who didn't understand the situation. I told him never to contact me again. Monday morning, I put on my absolute best tailored interview suit and drove straight to Aegis Tech. The modern office was bright, spacious, and filled with engineers who looked genuinely focused rather than burned out. The executive interview was with the newly appointed Senior Vice President of Engineering, Olivia Stanton, and a brilliant senior director named Daniel Ross. They had clearly done their extensive homework. We have been actively trying to recruit someone of your specific caliber for 6 long months, Olivia said warmly. Your legendary work at Vertex is well known across the industry. Their reliability metrics improved dramatically during your quiet tenure. Thank you, I said, genuinely surprised. I didn't think anyone outside the company tracked that data. We rigorously checked the publicly available uptime data, Daniel added with a bright smile. You single-handedly took them from 94% availability to 99.7%. That is absolutely exceptional for a legacy platform that complex. The interview lasted 2 wonderful hours. We talked deeply about modern architecture philosophy, about building resilient enterprise systems, about paying down technical debt, and how to effectively manage engineering teams. It felt like talking to true peers who deeply understood the grueling work, not out-of-touch managers who saw engineering as a mysterious black box. I will be totally honest, Olivia said toward the end of the meeting. We heard through the industry grapevine that you abruptly left Vertex last week. We rushed to move up this interview because we absolutely did not want to miss this rare opportunity. We are fully prepared to make a compelling offer today if there is mutual interest. I am definitely highly interested, I said confidently. Olivia and Daniel exchanged a very pleased glance. Vice President of Infrastructure, as we discussed, Olivia said. The base salary is $210,000 plus a 30% annual bonus target, plus massive company equity, 4 weeks of paid time off, full remote options 2 days a week. We would dearly want you to start in 2 weeks if that is possible for you. $210,000, that was nearly double what I had been making at my previous job. The equity alone was probably worth more than the signing bonus Harold had dangled. I enthusiastically accepted the offer on the spot. I negotiated a firm start date 3 weeks out, wanting some actual time off to fully decompress. I officially ignored the deadline Harold had given me, let him sweat. On Wednesday, the calls from Vertex finally ceased entirely. After I sent a brief final email to Harold and Sarah Miller confirming that I would absolutely not be returning, 2 years after leaving Vertex Solutions, I was thriving as the Vice President of Infrastructure at Aegis Tech. The company had grown massively, and the equity I had been generously granted was worth enough to fully pay off my remaining mortgage. More importantly, I now led a dedicated team of 48 brilliant engineers across 3 continents. We had built one of the most impressively reliable platforms in the tech industry. I was regularly invited to speak at major conferences and mentor other technical leaders. Everything I had desperately wanted to achieve at Vertex, I had effortlessly achieved elsewhere, simply because I was finally in an environment that truly valued growth and competence over petty office politics. Vertex Solutions limped along. I heard through the grapevine that Julian was eventually demoted, Martin was quietly forced out, and the company lost several massive contracts due to lingering instability. I still thought occasionally about that fateful Tuesday morning when Martin announced Juliana's unearned promotion. I thought about the 103 missed calls from desperate people who had taken my massive contributions completely for granted. I never called them back. I never had any reason to call them. I had learned that the absolute best revenge is not petty sabotage or public screaming matches. It is building something truly excellent somewhere else and never looking back. Knowing your true worth is the critical first step to finding where you are truly valued. Never settle for just being needed when you could be deeply valued instead.